me, Vicki Marie, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm speaking to you from mainland Spain, a very hot, sultry, humid mainland Spain. So the temperature is 30 degrees, which isn't that bad really, is it? But the humidity is at 60%. And that is what it is just. The humidity is a killer. I don't think people realise it. So if you're planning on going away this year if you're not normally from a hot country, you're planning on going away or you're on holiday at the moment as you're listening to this, oh, please just respect this heat, because literally I've only been out this morning, do a little bit of shopping, nothing mega. I've done some classes. I've got the fans on, I've got the windows open. It's getting to the sort of time of day where there's no point in opening the window, because you open the window and the heat that comes in is hotter than the heat you've got inside. So that's when the windows get closed, the blinds come down and the air conditioning goes on. You know, it's really difficult even when you're not doing anything strenuous. So don't go for long walks in the heat, please. Don't, all these things that we've seen recently, this spate of news stories about tourists getting into problems abroad, starting really with Michael Mosley, wasn't it? And it's true. You've got to be very careful. And when alcohol and drugs and things are combined, it's even worse. Because, of course, alcohol dehydrates you. I find it very difficult to drink alcohol in the summer, believe it or not, because it just makes you feel horrible. So I'm on water and lemon. Just try to rehydrate constantly. Just so hot. It's so hot. So the reason that's why I'm on the avatar and I'm not in person, because I literally feel sick. It is hot and I'm not even doing anything, strenuous, physical. So I just want people to be aware of that. If you are going on holiday abroad, just please, please, please be careful. Look after yourself. Okay. So let's say thank you. I want to say thank you to everybody. My usual thanks when I start off a video. Thank you to all of you that have subscribed so far. If you're not subscribed, please consider it. It's free. Thank you for those that have liked my videos. That's also a free way of supporting my channel if you enjoy my content. If you don't enjoy my content, that's fine. Go and watch another channel. No, I'm only joking. It's just that some comments that people make on YouTube channels just make me laugh, because, they sort of comment as if they're obliged, to watch you. They don't agree with you, that's fine. Or then they start insulting you. And well, you just think, well, why don't you just go and watch another channel? You don't have to watch it. So, but there's no accounting for people, I suppose. Also, I want to say thank you to a special thanks, as always, to my members. You can become a member of my channel, and we have 2 lives, exclusive members lives, Tuesday and Thursday evenings. So today is Tuesday. So tonight we'll be having a live, members only live for the Keep On Chatting level. It's $4.99 a month. And tonight we're going to be talking about empaths, I think, because people were quite keen on talking about that. Also, of course, we will be talking about any other news that might come up. But we're definitely going to have a little section in tonight's live on what it means to be an empath. Why are some people so much more empathetic towards other people than others? All this hate going around for Jay Slater's family. I mean, somebody actually made a comment. Can you believe this comment? Talking about Jay's mum, because all the hate seems to be focused on Jay's mum. A mother who's just lost her son. What sort of people are these that are saying these things? But this person said, she's found an easy way to make money. An easy way to make money. Goodness me. you know, yeah, lose your son dies in a tragic accident. It's an easy, she's found an easy way to make money, as if by somehow Jay's mum had made all this happen just so that she could make all this money on the GoFundMe. Just people are beyond me. So they're obviously not an empath. Let's put it. I think we could quite easily accept that that person who made that comment, whatever they think about the GoFundMe, or you know, that's a whole. But to make a comment like that, she's found an easy way to make money. That is beyond. You know, she's that person. You know, apart from being a really nasty person, obviously is not an empath. So, because anyone, even if people thought, oh, well, you know, the GoFundMe, it's a lot of money, and, you know, people are obsessed with money, aren't they? But as if that means anything, really. But, you know, even people who maybe don't really agree with the GoFundMe, they wouldn't feel like that or say something like that. So what makes some people capable of that sort of comment? You know, what makes them capable of making a comment like that, whereas other people are even maybe too much the other way, too empathetic, can't see it when somebody's trying to pull the wool over their eyes, or try, you know, because they automatically feel for that person. So we're going to be looking at that tonight, definitely, as part of this. There's a lot of things that I want to look at, but anyway, that'll be part of the members live tonight, so why not come and join us? Also, I want to say thank you to everyone who's bought me a coffee or sent me a super, sent me an email. People send me links, send me suggestions for videos. You know, I can't always do all the suggestions that people make. I do tend to take more notice of members' emails and members' suggestions for obvious reasons, because someone comes a member of my channel, you know, to me that they're you know, a very special contributor to my channel. And thank you for everyone who's left a nice message, but not thank you to the person who said that Jay's mum has found an easy way to make money. So what we're going to talk about in this video, talking of empaths, because sometimes being an empath, it's a bit of a tragic thing for some people. It can make you overthink, because you can take on the whole world's problems sometimes, being an empath. And I would imagine that Mica Miller, who we've talked about, you know, extensively, let me find a picture of her, put a picture up. Have I not got a picture? Yeah, I'll get a picture up, hang on. Yeah, Mica, of course, put this up because this has got a picture of her and her estranged husband on it. Let me take the banner off. So this is Mica here in the bottom corner. Mica was only 30 years old. She took her own life. Now her family, this is her sister. This is her estranged husband with his trusty Spider-Man costume, because he's obsessed. He thinks he is Spider-Man. You know, he seems to think, you know, he's obsessed with comics, etc., which a lot of people are. But I think he genuinely does think he's Spider-Man. But anyway, he was Mica's estranged husband. He'd been stalking her, making her life a misery. He tracked her. He'd put topless photo of her on the internet. He'd done various things. And he was a pastor. He's supposed to be a man of God. He's about the least part of a man of God that you could imagine. And eventually, unfortunately, Mica took herself off to a state park and killed herself. She went and bought a gun, went off to a state park, phoned the police to let them know where she was so her family wouldn't have to look for her, and then killed herself. Now, of course, the family are heartbroken. Her family are heartbroken. And, you know, they're saying that it was partly because of John Paul's behaviour and his incessant stalking and abuse of Mica. Mica herself said in a video that she put on Facebook that she'd been abused. She felt that she'd been abused in every way imaginable by her ex-husband. Of course, he poo-poos that. We watched a video the other day where he'd gone on News Nation, and we watched that video together, and I think you all were as shocked as I am at the things he said and his obvious lies that he was telling. And he is blaming squarely the family. So not only they've lost their daughter, their sister, etc., he is putting the blame fairly and squarely on the family for the reason that Mica is dead. So there's like some sort of legal battle, moral battle, emotional battle going on between JP Miller and Mica's family. And, you know, it's up to us who we decide to believe. I think when we watched him being interviewed, really didn't do himself any favours, did he? I think it became quite clear, really, who's telling the truth and who isn't. But we're going to watch the family side of it now, or a sister talking on the same news channel, News Nation, Banfield, and see what their response is to the horrible things that he was saying about them. But first of all, I'm going to say hello to everybody. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Chumba. Chumba, cumpleaños feliz. Cumpleaños feliz. Te deseamos todos. Cumpleaños feliz. Happy birthday, Chumba. I hope you have a lovely day. I'm not even going to answer that, Chumba. Hi, Shelley. Okay, so let's have a look at this. So we're going to have a look at what Mica's family had to say on Banfield. I do like Banfield. You always know what she's thinking, even if she doesn't say it. Her face says everything.
Happy Summer Monday. It's so good to have you here. Are you like exhausted by politics? I am. So I have a lot of very interesting material for you tonight.
Now, yes, she's right. It's all been about politics, hasn't it, with Joe Biden pulling out of the American election race. I mean, where is he as well? Where is he? He hasn't appeared at all, has he? I know he was poorly with COVID, but I'm starting to wonder if, you know, something hasn't happened to him. But anyway, he said when he gave his statement, if it was him, of course, it was a tweet. It wasn't a proper statement. But of course, we've got to bear in mind he had COVID. So maybe really quite ill for all we know. That later in the week he would make a statement, because he needs to address the country, doesn't he, really? Anyway, of course, since then it's all been full on politics, full on who's going to take over, Kamala Harris, what's Donald Trump got to say about it, blah, blah, blah. It's very interesting, I think, and I am going to do a video on that because, you know, I've been watching all the statements by everybody, and God, I mean, it's really sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's this is going to be just pivotal to America, isn't it? I know elections are pivotal, of course, but this one just feels that little bit more important, doesn't it?
If you were watching on Friday, thank you, as I always say, you probably saw that we had this incredible exclusive one-on-one interview. It was Pastor John Paul Miller, the husband of Mica Miller. And that story has...
Now, if you haven't seen this interview, you really have a look through my videos, because I covered this when it came out a couple of days ago, because, oh my God, I mean, it is a really, it's important really that you see that video before you see this video that I'm going to do today, because this video we're talking about the family's response to JP Miller's previous video.
Has just been, it's confounded all of us, frankly, right? We just can't understand how a healthy beautiful, seemingly happy young woman would just take her life just a few days after serving her husband with divorce. And then we started to see his behavior, and it was really weird. And we waited and waited and tried to get his side of the story. And finally he agreed. And man, did he ever talk on Friday. And the things he said were pretty uncomfortable, especially for her family, because he kind of blamed them for everything. So we called them. And now they're doing a big exclusive interview with us. And tonight you will be seeing that. They respond to everything Pastor J.P. Miller said about his now.
I'm just going to, we'll stay on point, Chumber, if you don't mind. We'll stay on subject. I'm going to fast forward it a little bit. Till we get to the what we're actually talking about tonight, because she's going to talk a little bit about Karen Reid by the looks of it there. That's a whole nother story. There's always lots of stories, aren't there? But today is Mica's story.
Mica died. We wanted Pastor Miller to share his side of the story, and oh boy, did he ever share. Here's a little taste.
I saw it coming for years. I told them for years this would happen over, and I said if she gets off her medicine, suicide is the next thing. She tried it in the past, but with me, she always remained okay with me. She was on her meds with me. She was healthy and happy. And even if she did get low or stop taking her medicine, I would help her get back on it, and things would be fine without me.
So everything was fine, according to him, while she was with him. There was no problem. He would get her back on her medication. Well, but it turns out, I think she actually did try to delete herself twice before while she was with him. But anyway, he doesn't mention that. But yeah, according to him, everything was fine while she was with him. It was only when the family took her away from him that this happened.
Me and with her family. She's off meds and she committed suicide. Am I supposed to stay home and cry? Am I supposed to go out with my friends? Am I supposed to go to a bar and drink? I don't know what the right thing is. Right? As a pastor, should I just get on my knees and pray? I mean, I want to die in that moment. I can neither confirm nor deny that I've ever put on a Spider-Man costume. But you'll never see me in the same room with Spider-Man, I will say that. Oh, I've never done a legal drug my whole life. Okay. Well.
Oh, so do we remember this interview? He said he's never done an illegal drug in his whole life. Then he goes, oh, hang on, I'm lying about that. I mean, this whole effect is ridiculous.
Oh, crap, that was a lie. I'm sorry, that was a lie.
I'll be addressing that bit in a minute, like the whole that was a lie, because it wasn't the only one. Mica died by suicide just days after.
With J.P. Miller, it's a bit like, how do you know when he's telling a lie? It's when his lips are moving, isn't it? Everything he says, you cannot believe a word he says. And he calls himself a man of God. He patently is not.
They're serving him with divorce papers, and there was a lengthy paper trail of his alleged abuses. The GPS tracker that he put on her car, the tires that he allegedly slashed, the topless photo that he apologized, posting that online, topless photo of Mica. But through it all, he told us that he was really just trying to save Mica from herself. He said he warned her family that she would die by suicide since he'd been unable to convince her to continue taking her meds. He said if anybody besides Mica is to blame for her death, he says it's her family. News Nation correspondent Rich McHugh reached out to that family, of course, for their response to all of this. And here's what Mica's sister, Anna Francis, and the family attorney, Regina Ward, had to say about all that.
What was it like watching this interview? How did it make you feel?
At one point, I burst down and started laughing. Like, just straight up started laughing. Because of...
Yeah, I know what she means. It was probably with the incredulity of it all, of what he's saying. If it wasn't that it was something so serious, it almost is funny. You know, if it was something not so serious, that's like a hysterical laughter, isn't it? She looks like Mica, this sister, I think, Anna.
Just how ridiculous half of everything was. And we can prove basically everything he said wasn't true.
What part made you laugh?
Whenever you asked him if he had never, well, the first part that made me laugh was whenever you asked him, has he ever done any drugs? And he said, absolutely not. I would never. And then he goes, "Ah, I just lied." And then said that he smoked or something, or didn't. Sat in a car when he was 16, whatever. And we know that he had done recreation things as a 40-year-old man in his 40s, late 30s. We know that for a fact. So we can prove that he's done it more than once.
So apparently he said his lawyer told him to do that interview. It seems like to me it was bad advice, because all these things he said can, like from what she's saying, they've got proof. You know, it's not the fact that you took recreational drugs or not. If you turn around and said, oh yeah, I've smoked marijuana, or I've done this, or I've done that, that's not the issue. That's his private life, I suppose, isn't it? But it's the issue is the lie. And now what she's saying is they've got proof that he has done that. So they're, you know, he's saying things that can be proven to be lies. And the thing is, if this ever does come to any sort of court case for maybe, I don't know, it could be, although it seems to be clear that Mica did do it to herself. But, you know, there's different ways of killing somebody, isn't there? You know, so if it ever does come to a court case, it's almost as if he's setting himself up for people to prove that he's a liar. And once you're in a court, if you've been proved of one lie, then the jury or the judge or whatever tends to not believe the other things that you say, obviously. So I think that was very ill advised, that interview. But anyway, he did it.
And then saying he's on steroids just once, tried it once. That's also, we can prove that he's done that more than once as well. And I don't know. It was silly to me that everything he's saying, he's just giving kind of partial truth to.
Well, I think the biggest thing is if you go to the comments that were left, everyone was spot on. Everybody called him out, and it was easy, I think. You don't have to be a professional to detect a lie. And it was obvious, I think, that many things that came out of his mouth were falsehoods or recreations or exaggerations, partial truths with a little something added, partial truths with something missing.
Mica's family says that she once told her sister, quote, if I end up with a bullet in my head, it was JP. But in Rich McHugh's interview, JP, Pastor John Paul, emphatically denied that he ever.
I mean, you know, as I said, I keep on saying there are more than one way. There's more than one way of killing someone. You can, you know, it could have been him who shot her, or could have been just him chipping away at her for years and years and years. It's still murder, really, or manslaughter at least. You know, that poor Mica. I mean, she had everything to live for, really, didn't she? You know, someone looking at her life from the outside, apart from him, like chipping away at her, you know, it seemed like she had a nice place to live. She had a job, she had friends, she had family. And, you know, lots of people would look at Mica's like she's beautiful. Lots of people would look at Mica's life and think, oh, you know, that's a good life. But just shows you never know what's going on in someone's head. You know, people seem to be okay on the surface and they seem to have everything, but you just don't know what's going on. And, you know, she wasn't happy, was she? She was not happy. She'd been groomed by him since she was 14 years old or whatever. So, no, you know, she'd been under that man's spell one way or another, even though she'd married someone else in between. But she'd known him since she was early teens. She'd been his babysitter for his children. So he had a very strong effect on her.
Abused Mica.
Have you ever abused your wife?
Never, not once in any way, shape, or form. I took better care of her than anybody could ever take care of her. I never asked her to clean the house, not once in 7 years of marriage. She never had to cook a single meal. She never had to work. She was never harmed physically in any way.
But here is what Mica's sister and her attorney say about that.
Well, him just using a simple,
I mean, that was ridiculous what he said when they said, "Oh, did you ever abuse?" And he said, no, she never had to clean the house or cook a meal, as if that's abuse. That's not what abuse is. Well, I suppose making someone do it is abuse, but funny how he just said that straight away as if he didn't realise what abuse meant.
Almost wanted to be thanked that she was never forced to clean her house. And he uses those small little things that he might have done that most people would say, oh, I wish I could have a house cleaner or something like that. He uses that as almost like a token. I get to do what I want now today because I didn't make you clean the house today.
Regina, you were working with Mica before she died.
Yes.
What was she telling you? I mean, she called the police about abuse, but tell us what she, if you can, what she was telling you she was going through.
Yeah, I absolutely can. You know, lawyers usually have a duty of confidentiality even to the grave. But I have the permission to speak about those things through Sierra, who's the special administrator over the estate. So she has assumed the shoes of Mica and speaks for her. So she's given me permission to talk about most of those things. Some no. But basically, Mica was telling me a lot of horrendous things that shocked my conscience. And I've been doing this for almost 20 years.
Abuse?
Yes.
What types of abuse?
Every kind that you can imagine, and even kinds that you can't imagine as a normal, rational human being. And to see this.
Now, that's what Mica had said herself, hadn't she, on one of her videos, that he had abused her in every way you could possibly imagine. You know, I wonder if this is all going to come out when there's going to be some sort of court case, I'm sure. I don't know exactly how it's all going to transpire, but I suppose all these things are going to come out then.
Absolutely beautiful 20 in her 20. Well, she just turned 30, but she lived all of her 20s with this man. And she had such a beautiful spirit and an aura about her that you immediately knew that you sensed that she had a good heart, was a good woman, and she wanted to just be the best Christian woman there ever was. And she was having such a hard time reconciling between what God's teachings say about forgiveness and to pray for our enemies and so forth, and her duty as a wife. She felt spiritually. She struggled with these things because on one point it's God says that as a wife I need to be supportive of my husband, I need to be obedient, and I'm trying to.
Gosh, you know, because that's it. Mica had such a strong faith, and she would have been constantly, because married to someone like J.P. Miller, who was a pastor, and he's like the biggest gaslighter you've ever imagined. He can talk his way out of anything. I bet anything she said to him, oh, I don't know if I want to do that, or I don't know if that's right, he will have come up with a scripture that would have fit what he was telling her to do or asking her to do. He would have run rings around a person like Mica, because Mica was a deep thinker. She was an overthinker. So instead of just thinking, oh, hang on a minute, this doesn't feel right, I don't want to do that, he'll have thrown some scripture at her, or some, you know, some bloody religious thing that she couldn't have argued with, and then she will have gone along with it because she'd have thought that made her a good wife, instead of realizing that he was just a bad husband. Gosh.
Do that, and at the same time God is telling me that I need to forgive someone who's abusing me. So she had a difficult time reconciling, you know, that, where am I supposed to forgive my husband for abusing me, for doing these terrible things to me? And like in her video, these terrible, terrible, terrible things.
One question in particular got a big reaction from Pastor John Paul, who again took aim at Mica's family.
Do you feel that you did anything that you would change? Do you feel any part responsible?
God, that's a great question.
he goes into like some sort of psychotic overdrive here. But when he turns to the side there and you see these devil ears, to me, just literally looks like how I'd imagine the devil to look. I mean, do you know, the thing is, if you believe in God, you know, and I do believe in God, and if you believe in good, you know, then you have to believe in evil, because you can't believe in one without the other. It's like if you believe in evil, you have to believe in God, because, you know, if you, some people are into Satanism or whatever, but, you know, there can't be one without the other. There's the two extremes. And then I think, you know, sometimes I think the whole of life is a battle between those two elements of good and evil, or God and the devil. You know, that's, you know, and those are just names that we have for it. You know, different religions could be God, it could be Muhammad, it could be Buddha, could be anybody. You know, it's not the name that matters. That they're just words. These are entities. You know, there's like this within all of us. There's good and evil, and life is a constant battle between good and evil. You know, who in your own life, sometimes you do things, you know, little things and big things that you think, oh, I shouldn't really do that, but you do it. And, you know, we've all done things. It's just, that's human nature. We're battling all the time with our consciences. And some people have done worse things than others. Most of us have just done little petty things that afterwards we think, oh, I shouldn't really have done that, or you regret things, or, you know. And then other times, some people have done big things, like, you know, murdered people, etc. So, but on some sort of level, we've all done something that's good in our lives and some things that are bad in our lives. Anyone who says they haven't, I think, you know, you're deluding yourself personally. Sometimes you don't even realize you're doing it bad. Maybe, you know, you're trying to do things for the good reason, and it turns out you wish you hadn't done that. But life is like that, isn't it? It's a constant battle of ideas, you know, whether you should do something, shouldn't do so. And if you're an overthinker like Mica, I mean, some people don't even think about it, they just do it, never think about it, never consider anything. Now, with him, I look at him and I think, God, he reminds me of the days, the devil in some people. Because if I ever saw anyone who looked like they had the devil in him, it's him. You know, just get that real bad aura off him, the falseness. You know, and I might be misjudging him, but I don't think so personally. But anyway, nothing he's done so far has convinced me that I'm misjudging him. Whereas with Mica, you know, you do feel like this good shines out of her, but you can see that she's an overthinker. Sometimes you can be almost too good, think about things too much. I mean, you've got to try and, for you yourself, you've got to try and aim somewhere in the middle, haven't you? Because otherwise people can just ride all over you. People like John Paul Miller, you know, psychopaths, sociopaths, whichever way, they ride all over people like Mica. You know, she was still young and not strong enough. Maybe in another 10 years, she would have got more strength to resist someone like John Paul. But at her age, and having known him from being so young and vulnerable, that would have been very difficult for her to withstand him, because he was an older man as well. An older man who's a sociopath, who just only cares about what he wants, not about anybody else. That'd be very difficult for someone like Mica to fight against, wouldn't it?
Man, that's such a good question. Wow, what a good question. Can I have a second to think about it?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, what a good question. What a good question. Can I have a second to think about it? God, this man. Yeah, I mean, he's a really bad man. And there's nothing worse than a man who's a bad man pretending he's a good man.
Okay. Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. What would I do differently? Oh man. I know what I do. I would not involve her family when she's having mental episodes and is schizophrenic and, you know, is off her meds. I would never have texted them.
So, can I have a minute to think about it? He had a minute to think about it, and he came straight back with an attack on the family again. He's still not accepting any responsibility for his actions. You know, what would he have done differently? You know, how did he treat Mica that he would have treated her differently? No, he just came straight back with an attack on her family.
Naturally, Rich McHugh also addressed that moment with Mica's sister and her attorney.
If I'm condensing what I believe is his central defense, he relies heavily on saying she was on lithium, and when she was on her meds, she was good, and when she was off her meds, she was not good, and her family wanted her off her meds, and therefore I was the only person that was trying to really save her life. He ultimately lays blame on your family for this. What do you would want to say to that?
I would say that we wanted what Mica wanted. She wanted to run a charity and she wanted to go to Africa and do all that. And I said, wow, amazing. Good for you. Like, that's awesome. I'm not as good as person as you, basically. Like, you have great aspirations for your life, everything you do. And if she said, I want to divorce John Paul or I want to get back together, we would just support her, anything she said. So, and again, on like the medicine, I think that's just his only way to kind of control the narrative, is to talk about how mentally ill she was whenever she wasn't mentally ill her whole life. She only had any kind of signs, in his opinion, of being mentally ill since the day they got married.
Yeah, this is a typical thing, isn't it, that these abusers do, is blame the victim and say they're mentally ill. When we know that the person who's mentally ill in this case is, well, to me, it's evidently JP's definitely got so many mental problems, because he's a total control freak. He's got to be completely in control, and if Michael did end up mentally ill, it was him who made her mentally ill. I mean, you can only just tell just by listening to Micah's sister talking here now. It's just so different from listening to him talking. You're not listening. She's looking directly at the interviewer. She's got no signs of deception. She's not looking off to the side. Got to think about what she's saying for 10 minutes, laughing, sniffing, touching her nose, all those things that JP was doing. It is, you don't have to be an expert in body language to see the difference between the way she is and the way JP was. He does think everybody's an idiot, doesn't he? Because he's taken his congregation in for so long. And he's taken Mica in, because obviously at some point Mica was in love with him because she married him. He's taken lots of women in, I would imagine. So he really did think when he did that interview he could take everyone in.
And 3 to 4 months after they got married is when she was first hospitalized. And then it just kept happening, and we were starting to see a pattern. And even through that pattern, I sometimes would speak up, and to the point where John Paul actually served me with a cease and desist letter a few years ago. And also he put a stipulation on me and Mica's relationship and said, you have to write an apology letter to me to be able to talk to your sister. So if anyone was controlling whether Mica was speaking to her family, it was John Paul. Yeah, and I did not do what he said. I did not write an apology letter because I was putting my beliefs out there. I was stating the truth, and what John Paul can't handle is the truth and what was happening in that situation. So I wasn't allowed to speak to my sister per John Paul for over a year. And then when she went to go leave him, I was able to have a relationship with my sister again.
Well, that's the first thing that they do, isn't it? These abusers is they isolate the victim from their families. And that's what they do. And, probably a lot of us know, I know from my sisters and things when they've been in abusive relationships. It is difficult because what happens is they turn up at your house and they say, oh, they've done this, that and the other. And that's it. I'm leaving them. I can't go through it anymore. And you support them and you support them in everything they say. You get angry with the partner because your sister or whoever has told you, what this partner has done. because that's what they do when they first split up from him. And then lo and behold, a couple of weeks later, they go back to that partner. I mean, it does happen. And then you've got to, because, you know, at the end of the day, if you want to see your sister, then never again, you've either got to make some sort of rapprochement with the the partner that was the ex-partner and now's the partner again. Because otherwise you're never going to see your loved one again, your sister, because they will isolate them and take them away from you. And it's easy to do them because you have probably by then said things about them because your loved one has told you the terrible things they've done. So obviously you're going to be really angry and say, oh my God, you know, blah, blah, he's this, that, and the other. And then the next minute they go back to him. So this is why people are so interested in Mica's case as well, I think, is this is a story playing out not only all over America. This is a story plays out all over the world of, you know, unfortunately, sometimes women do go back to their abusive partners because that partner is so expert in their coercive control and control it. You know, it's easy for them they'll go back. They'll love bomb them. They'll promise them they'll never do anything like that again. They'll promise them anything. That's what he did, wasn't he? He wrote that letter that, you know, saying he would buy her a car or something for $10,000 and he would, you know, he admitted to everything he'd done and said he was sorry. That he's now saying was not true. It was just what she asked him to do. And you can imagine, and then someone like Mica, who took her religion seriously, as far as she's concerned, she'd married him in front of God. She's like torn because that's her husband. Should she go back to him? Should she give him another chance? I mean, you can just see it. And that is just Mica's story. But that story, as we're speaking now, that will be being experienced all over the world. And that's why people are so interested in Mica's story, because people can identify with it.
What does your family want to say about this and their general response to his interview?
So glad you asked that question. Our family wants to have Mica remembered as the amazing person she was throughout all of this. We wouldn't shine any negative light on her, what she did, anything that would control her whole life. We would never even want to speak negatively about John Paul either, because that's not what Christians do either. We let, like, God can take control of the situation. Then we let the law enforcement do what they need to do to protect Mica. The family has a lot of awesome plans for us to pick up where Mica left off in her charity work and everything. We want to continue to be that light towards the world that Mica was. And we don't want her absence to leave a hole or anything. We want to all fill that hole. And that's why we believe so much that Regina is a good person to help us do that, because then Mica's law can be introduced and more people can be helped. As much as John Paul thinks he's one of a kind person, there's tons of men like him, and there's tons of females like him that want to do the same thing to others that
Yeah, I think that's important to point out. It's not only men who do it. There's lots of female coercive controllers out there, female narcissists that do the same thing with their partners. Oh, that's my dog talking. Hello, baby. You know, so it's important to remember that it is not just men doing it to women. It's women doing it to men, women doing it to other women, men doing it to other men. Any relationship, this sort of thing can happen.
he did to Mica. And that's why this Mica's law is so important.
I'm joined now by News Nation investigative correspondent Rich McHugh, who conducted both the interviews with Pastor John Paul Miller and with Mica Miller's family. Rich, great job, especially on like walking the tightrope, because a lot of this you've got to discuss mental health and it's very sensitive. But I want to just right off the top get your sense about Mica Miller's family. I mean, they're in mourning. They've lost her. She took her own life, and it's been just sort of a devastating series of weeks for them. But they seem very, very laser focused on a mission. Is that the sense that you got from them, that they have a plan?
100%. Actually, they have not changed since I've met them, which is since this happened. They are laser focused. They are united. They talk daily as a family. Everything goes through a decision process. They're united front, and they extend that, I believe, to Regina, their attorney. They want to get justice for their sister. They want her story to get out. They're doing this to help other people so this doesn't happen to other people. But they also just want the truth out. They don't want this kind of hanging over them and her sister's legacy.
So I want to ask you about a couple of things, because you've done two very big interviews in a short period of time in which there was a lot of other breaking news. So forgive me if the audience is sort of catching up on some of this. But when you did the interview and we aired it on Friday with J.P. Miller, Pastor Miller, I mean, for those who didn't see it, the best way to characterize it is just bizarro. I mean, he seemed to cry at the drop of a hat, and crying seemed to be a central theme of the interview. Do I have that right?
1,000%, Ashley.
Yeah, so he had a good cry, didn't he, during the interview, and we weren't quite sure what it was. This was before the interview had even started. We weren't quite sure what that was all about.
I've done over 2,000 interviews in my career, and this was easily the craziest interview I've ever been a part of. The energy was like being on a roller coaster. I didn't know where we were going. Like, I would ask him a simple question, and all of a sudden it would elicit a response like we just saw. Several times he admitted, like, I asked him a question about, okay, you admitted, in a letter to Mica, you admitted that you'd hired a private eye, and you apologized for slashing her tires, and et cetera, et cetera. And I said, why did you stop the private eye? Why did you stop? Why didn't you know where she was the day that she died? He said, oh, I stopped because I ran out of money. And so we moved on. And after the interview, he texted me. He said, I'm sorry, I lied. I'm so sorry. That was not the real reason. So this was like an all-day thing. And it was all over the map. He was fidgeting, touching his nose. I was just trying to hang on and make sure I got through my questions so that we got through the whole interview. And we did. We went for over 2 hours. So we got it all.
Well, it was a great interview. I think I was taken aback when right off the top he burst into tears almost before you even asked a question. And actually, I want to play a moment from your most recent interview with Mica Miller's family.
So somebody was saying, that apparently he cries in front of his, congregation every week. So, it's something that he knows how to turn on the tears when he wants to. And we saw that very strange sort of thing when he was lying on the floor in the grass that he said was overdose of pain medication. He was crying then, wasn't he? And talking like that. So he knows how to put on a show. I mean, he did seem to have tears. But then, if he's, actors can put on tears, I suppose. And maybe he really was crying for himself. He probably does miss Mica, I don't know. But it's not so much that he misses Mica, is it? It's he misses the control that he had over it.
And they reacted to all the crying. So let me roll that, and I'm going to ask you about it in a moment. Let's take a look.
Sure. When he started crying, did that feel like that was authentic to you?
As someone who attended Solid Rock for many years, he cried on stage almost every other Sunday. And I would invite friends to come with me because, I believe everyone should hear the word. And my friends would call it out and say, that was the fakest cry I've ever seen. And at first I was almost going to defend John Paul. And then whenever I started seeing it over and over again, and people started pointing out all of his fake cries, then I just became numb to it. And then, obviously stopped going to the church, but he's just kind of known for doing that.
So Rich, ultimately is Mica's family happy that he did do this interview with you? And when I say that, obviously I'm angling here. Do they think they got something out of it, something that they actually might be able to use against him?
I believe they do. I've heard from several of the family members. They thanked me and News Nation for doing this in an extensive way. They said this will help us. I asked Regina, like, what comes of this? Like, what did you see? She said, oh, I plan to introduce this in court. There's a lot of ammunition. We were just provided. We understand, like, this, and in her words, the web of lies that he's going to use to try and defend himself in court. So, yes, undoubtedly, they want him to keep speaking. They were surprised that his attorney let him do this interview in the first place.
So I've been in the game for a long time, like a few decades. And I remember one of the first lessons in journalism was that we don't cover suicides. We don't want any copycats. We don't want to draw attention to that in a negative way. And this is a suicide. This is not a murder. John Paul has been charged with nothing. He hasn't been charged with abuse. He hasn't been charged with murder. No one thinks it's a murder in the official category. Unofficially, there's lots of chatter online. My question is, why does this story have such legs? There's something like 1 million people who watched that interview just online as of like this afternoon.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying earlier, the reason why. People empathize with Mica. Lots of women out there and men, and lots of people in relationships. It's actually awful, isn't it, when you think about it, because it's like during COVID, isn't it? So many people during COVID, how awful it must have been for them. How especially awful it must have been for them, because if they were then shut in with their abuser, I just can't imagine how it must have been. If coercive control is bad enough in normal life, but during COVID, it just must have been unbearable. But that's it, isn't it? People can see it, because even if people haven't experienced it themselves, they'll have someone in their family that will have experienced this. They'd be their daughter, their sister, their mum, maybe, So I think it is a story everyone can relate to. And also his behaviour. People can just say, he's just made the biggest mistake, because his congregation might think he's fantastic. He reminds me a little bit of the Jonestown massacre. I don't know. I did a video about that, about Jim Jones, and how he convinced his whole, congregation, and they went off to live in that place in New Guinea or wherever it was. And, he ended up, they committed, well, they say a mass self-deletion, but probably quite a lot of those people were murdered, because they just weren't given a choice in what to do. And children were involved in everything. Sometimes these people, they can cast a spell over their own followers. But I think what JP hasn't realised is that when he comes out into the wider world, and it's not, 14-year-old girls or his unquestioning congregation, people won't just be sucked in and believe everything he says. In fact, he comes over as being transparently deceptive.
I think actually it's because there's a phrase that has been coming back to us in the feedback, and it's called coercive control. It's also something that Mica's family is fighting for. They're saying, yeah, it's abuse in their opinion. What she went through was abuse. But it's all under this umbrella of coercive control. And there's millions of people, men and women, across the United States who are in these situations facing coercive control, and they can't get out of it. And so I think that's why so many people this is having an effect on them. And Mica's her family are trying to pass this bill. I think it's called Mica's Law, which is about coercive control. And it would have set off a bunch of it would have tripped some alarm bells in the process, made it easier for her to leave. Whereas right now, like in the way the law currently is, it did not allow her an easy escape. Let's put it that way.
Rich McHugh, such great work. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And by the way, I don't want our audience to leave, because, in a moment, we've got this whole jaw-dropping about face by the good pastor. Do you remember the apology letter that he wrote to Mica, the one that was teeming with regret for the way that he treated her? He now says he never meant a word of it. So perhaps it's no surprise that her family calls BS when he says he and Mica were on the road to reconciliation.
Our family does have evidence that the last time they had any interaction was in close proximity with each other. It was the complete opposite of what he's saying it was. They did not kiss. They did not hug. They did not talk about getting back together.
Also ahead, Mica's attorney says there may be evidence to support criminal charges against J.P. Miller. More of this exclusive interview next. At one point in the stormy marriage of Mica Miller and her pastor husband, John Paul Miller, he wrote her a letter apologizing for some of the nastier things that he'd done to her. For one, posting a topless photo of her on the internet, and two, vandalizing her car tires. JP wrote that he was trying to hurt Mica because she had hurt him, admitting that it was, quote, evil of him to do it. But in his exclusive interview with News Nation, he did a 180 on that. He backtracked. Not just on the apologies, but on the implied admissions of guilt as well. Here now is more of our exclusive interview with Mica's sister, Anna, and the family's attorney, Regina Ward. They both say that Pastor Miller's non-apology speaks volumes.
As far as the email and him saying that, we're all referring to it as the apology letter. He's spinning it just like he does with everything. He's been caught, okay, and now it's like, oh, how can I explain away? Because he always explains away everything. There's something else that's motivating whatever is happening. So now that that's come forward, then he's got to say, oh goodness, how do I overcome this? I've just admitted all of these things. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll just say that I admitted them because Mica said that she wanted me to.
Our family does have evidence that the last time they had any interaction was in close proximity with each other. It was the complete opposite of what he's saying it was. They did not kiss. They did not hug. They did not talk about getting back together. If asking for that letter, why would he just lie and just say he did all these things to get her back on medication? She had been off of that medication for months.
Hey, that was obvious lies that he told there, because of course I said this in the last video. Of course, now that Mica's no longer with us, Mica can't say anything. He could say anything that they did on their last night together. And Mica's not here to say, no, that's not true. I mean, I know who I believe between him or a sister. A sister is transparently more likely to be telling the truth than him. But the thing is, at the end of the day, on whatever that was, the last time he and Mica were together, only he and Mica know the truth of what really happened. And Mica is not here with us anymore. He said they hugged, didn't it? They talked about getting back together. Isn't that more what he wished would have had happened? It's just, he can say anything, and Mica's not here to defend herself, to say it, to correct him, to, do anything. So he now, of course, this email that he'd sent her apologizing for all those terrible things that he did to her, like stalking her, slashing her tires, putting a naked picture of her on Facebook, you name it, he did it. He's now saying that he only wrote that because she said to him, of course, she's not here to say anything. She said to him, oh, well, I'll start taking my tablets again if you give me $10,000 and if you write me a letter apologizing for all these things that you didn't do. He really does think people are stupid, doesn't he? He's got a real downer on people's intelligence. He thinks he's so super intelligent and that everybody else will just believe him.
During the course of that interview, News Nation correspondent Rich McHugh showed Mica's sister and her lawyer video. This one. This is JP and Mica arguing at a car dealership just weeks before Mica's death. And Mica's sister says these are the pastor's true colors, and that the video may actually prove useful if he's ever prosecuted.
It looked like he just got out of bed or something. I don't know. It was apparent that she was being tracked back then because he just showed up out of nowhere without her telling him where she was. And that happened multiple times. He was, again, trying to control, embarrass her. And so she has to call the police and say, I don't want him here. And he just shouts things at her to get a rise out of her, just like he would in his interview. Say things towards the family to try to get a rise out of us. And she rose above that, and so is our family. We're going to rise above the things that he's trying to put out there that are not true.
It absolutely is evidence of abuse. And when Mica brought it to me and gave it to me, I was like, thank goodness that she got that. I wish it would have been longer, but she wasn't expecting him. So when she's trying to fumble around and get it going, and man, the minute that he saw that she got that going, that's when he's turning around to walk.
Yeah, exactly. The trouble is when someone takes you by surprise like that, first of all, you probably don't think, to take your phone out of your bag and start recording or whatever. And then once you do, thank God, if it was me, by the time I would have got it sorted, they would have gone because I'm not dead quick, But yeah, by the time you got your video running and this, that, got your phone sorted and was filming them, and then you could see he saw that and he was off. He realized, God, you think, what have you got to do? Walk around with a phone constantly ready to record just in case he turned up. But yeah, that was definitely JP's true colours, wasn't it? Definitely his true colours. He's a nasty, small man who thinks, he's a bit more special than he actually is.
Walk away. And I'm so grateful that she did get that, because I feel that without that little sliver of a video, that the world would not get an inside view of John Paul. He is very crafty in spinning his web. He is always spinning the narrative.
Spinning his web. The guy who cosplayed.
Yeah, maybe he should try and be president. He seems to be cut out for politics as far as I can see. There he is in his Spider-Man outfit. Oh, he loves to be Spider-Man.
Played as Spider-Man next to his Wonder Woman wife, and who held on to that outfit for random walks around his neighborhood and around his town. But that's not a crime, is it?
No.
And the question still remains, will J.P. Miller, Pastor Miller, ever have to answer in criminal court or civil court for any part that he may have played in his wife's death? Mica's family attorney says if she has anything to say about it, yes.
Well, as far as putting someone behind bars, that takes a prosecutor that has to meet those burdens of proof. I think that I have lots of evidence that would certainly support potentially a charge. In Mica's situation, it's not one single event. It's not the one single photo. It's not the one single taking her car. It's not the one single, different things that he did to her. It is all of that put together. And in the totality of the circumstances, that becomes a crime. We can't let this fish go.
Yeah, it's very difficult, isn't it? So when I was stalked years ago, my ex, he took my car as well. Took it for. So what he'd done, now some of you will know this if you've watched it, but what he'd done was under the pretext of saying to me, because I was coming to Spain on holiday and I was going to drive here. This is years and years and years ago. And he said to me, I'll take your car to make sure the tyres are all right, to give it a service. God, when I think about it now, it's a wonder he didn't cut my brake lines. But anyway, he said, I'll take the car and I'll get it serviced for you, make sure the tyres are okay, make sure it's got oil, all that, because you're going on a long journey to Spain. I paid for all the new tyres and everything, but he took it. And did it. And I thought, that's really nice of him, because, we were separated and he was being a bit stalkerish, but he hadn't really wound it up yet, to like real extreme stalker. Anyway, off he went, and then I went off on holiday to Spain with my friend and then came back. And on the way back from Spain, the car broke down. Which, when I think about it, maybe he did something to it. I don't know. I don't think so, because we'd driven it all the way to Spain. I'd driven it for a month. I'd been in Spain for a month over Christmas, and we were driving back to the UK, and the car broke down. Anyway, to cut a very long story short, so the car was taken off, like by the grower, by the the insurance company. And we were given a hire car, and we made our way back to the UK. Then, because I was with Green Flag Recovery, I'd recommend them, because when the car was repaired, they flew to pick up the car and drive it back, and they dropped it right outside my house. Now, the thing is, where I was living at the time, my ex-partner, he wasn't even supposed to know where I was living. So I wasn't expecting anything. But anyway, so the car was parked outside my house by the Green Flag. They gave me the keys back, everything fine. And then later that evening, somebody pushed a letter through my door as I was on the phone to my sister, like an envelope came through the door. And I just thought it was, I think it was at a time around an election. I thought it was some sort of leaflet or, some canvassing. I just carried on talking to my sister. I saw it come through the door because it was, like a terraced house with the living room back, went straight onto the street. And then when I got up to pick up this letter, it was from him, from my ex-partner, saying he'd taken the car. So he'd found out where I lived. First of all, he wasn't supposed to know where I lived. I was living at a secret address. And when he took my car to get the tyres replaced, etc., he'd had a key made, another key made of my car. So he'd taken my car and driven it off. And he'd hidden it somewhere. And what I did was the next day I went to where he was working, and I just went absolutely mental. I didn't ring the police. I should have rang the police. The car was in my name, so I knew. He worked in like a shop, in a betting shop. I was just showing him up, shouting, give me my keys, tell me where my car is, etc. Anyway, so you know what he'd done? He'd taken the car, he parked it up sort of somewhere in Reading, where I would never have been able to find it. And he put a crook lock on it as well. So even if I did find it, I couldn't take it away with the keys because he'd put a crook lock on it, so I couldn't take it. Anyway, I kicked off such a fuss. I can't remember exactly how it all ended, but it was traumatic, as you can imagine. And eventually he gave me the keys to the crook lock, and I took it back. I took the car back, but I had to move again then because he'd found out where I lived. I had to change my address again. That was the third time since we'd split up that I had to move.
Or should I say Spider-Man? And I would like to talk about that for a minute. Isn't that appropriate for him? Spider-Man spins webs to navigate through a city or through a town, wherever he's going. That's how he gets through. John Paul Miller is Spider-Man because he's always spinning a web to navigate through life. That's what he does.
Coming up tomorrow, Mica Miller in her own words. We have a voicemail that puts her relationship with her purportedly abusive husband in a vastly different light, one you haven't seen before. Plus JP's propensity to lie. He didn't just lie to a friend or a pastor or his wife. He lied to us. And he actually admitted it in writing. And we have all of the details right here tomorrow. So make sure you don't miss it. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was a long time ago for me. So I don't want, I know somebody the last time I spoke that said, oh, did he ruin your life? He didn't ruin my life. It's 30 years ago now. I was very lucky that I could move. But as I think I've said in other videos, I mean, it was awful. And the thing is, you do almost have a nervous breakdown when someone's stalking you. But luckily, when it happened to me, there weren't all these gadgets that they've got now, like, trackers. Oh, my God. he would definitely have tracked me. You know, there wasn't even really social media, and we had like mobile phones, but it was really just messaging, not there was no WhatsApp, no Facebook, none of that sort of thing. So it was a different era, luckily for me. And he didn't get arrested, because in the end, it's a very long story, but in the end, he actually deleted himself. So it got to I was just lucky, whereas Mica couldn't get away from. This is why I feel so much for Mica, because I feel like she was trying to make a new life for herself. But she couldn't. He wouldn't let her go, would he? He wouldn't let her go, and she couldn't get away from him. You know, really, while you shouldn't have to, but really, probably what she should have done was just gone off to the other end of the country or whatever. But it's not as easy as that, is it? You know, it's not as easy as that to just. You know, why should you have to move? I was very lucky that I could move from place to place, you know. So I moved to my niece's in London. Then I moved from my niece's in London to Reading, to a secret address, if you like, with another student. So I was at university at the time. I was pregnant as well. And then when he stole my car and I realised he'd found out where I lived again, I moved back to London to my niece's again. So luckily, when it all sort of came to a head, that's where I was, and he did not know I was there. Also, he didn't have a car because I had the car. He had the house and I had the car, so he couldn't make it. He didn't know where my niece, even if he would have known that or guessed that I'd gone back to London to my niece's, he didn't know where my niece lived in London. London's a big place. So, of course, it was a different era then. Like nowadays, he'd probably be able to find me by my phone or, you know, I don't know, put a tracker on the car or whatever. So it's, you know, that's why especially I feel for Mica, because I know how she felt like there was no way out. You do start to feel like that in the end. It's like, well, how's this all going to end, you know? So and the police are no use because, you know, I think the laws are better now, but there's a limit to what you can do. The police actually said to me that until he did something to me, they couldn't do anything. That is exactly what they said. Well, you know, he hasn't, you know, actually he hadn't attacked me physically or anything like that. So they practically said to me, until he actually does something to you, we can't do anything. So it's like, what, you've got to die before they can do anything. But in a way, that's true, because it's very difficult for the police to do anything with someone, especially when someone's clever like that. I mean, JP's got money as well, you know, he's got contacts, he's clever, you know, he'd do it all in a very, he's used to pulling the wool over people's eyes. So, you know, yeah, it's a shame she didn't take off. She should have, but you know, I don't know, who knows what was going through her head. But it's difficult to just up sticks, take off to another place. Maybe that was what she wanted the $10,000 for. You know, but then of course we can all look and say what we would have done. But also you don't know what you would do in the circumstances, because you know, you just don't know what was going through Mica's head. And you know, maybe she just couldn't face it anymore. That's how it feels in the end. So it's a horrible feeling. I remember a friend of mine saying to me, one of you is going to have a nervous breakdown. Don't know if it'll be you or him, because I was literally checking the boot of my car to make sure he wasn't in it before I even got in my car. So I'd come out after that, I'd come out of work or whatever, and before I would drive off, you know, drive home, because I didn't want him to know where I was living, I would literally open the boot and just check he wasn't hiding in the boot. You know, it just all seems mad now, but that's how it feels. So anyway, I hope he does get, you know, I don't know what they'll end up being able to charge him with. And of course, whatever they end up doing won't bring Mica back. But maybe this Mica's law. So I'm going to put this, I will just, there's a website, Justice for Mica. I'm just going to put this in the, but I'm going to put it on my community page as well, so that people can visit it. And I think there's some sort of like a petition or something for Mica's law. So let's all try and sign it, and let's hope something comes out of it. I don't know what the answer is, because I know when these people are so obsessive, we've seen it just recently, haven't we, in Bushy, with the guy who killed Kyle, who killed Carol and the two daughters, one of which he'd had an affair with, not an affair, a relationship with. And he just gone there with a crossbow and killed all three of them. How can you stop that happening? You can't put people under armed guard 24 hours. From what I've seen of different stories of stalking that ended in murder, the person, you just, no matter what, even if they had restraining orders or they'd been arrested by the police, it's like a mission that they're on, isn't it? Well, just recently we've seen the thing with Doris Aguilar, that has had hardly any media attention in America. There she's a 25-year-old woman, just taken off by an ex co-worker who was obsessed with her, and he's threatened her, sent her pictures of guns. And in the end, he's taken her and he's shot her and then shot himself. And that's had hardly any media attention, even from the other YouTube channels. You just think, why has Doris's case not attracted the same attention? And he actually shot her and then shot himself. Just happens all the time. It's terrible. Okay, so I just wanted to show you, I said I would show you Mica's family's response to that weird interview he did. Let's hope some charges do come up in the end and makes a difference, hopefully, to somebody. Let's hope so. Okay, so I'll be back tonight. Tonight is Tuesday. It'll be the Carry On Chatting members live. Looking forward to that. We're going to be talking about empaths and some other things. I've not decided yet. I've got some things to say about Jay Slater again, and I want to talk about the American elections. I want to talk about so many things. There's always so many things to talk about. But definitely we'll be talking about why are some people more empathetic than others. And, you can see with John Paul Miller, he's not empathetic at all, is he? He's got not even a trace of an empath in him. It's all about him and how it's affected his life. He's not even empathetic about Mica's family and how they're coping with losing their daughter, their sister. He just doesn't care. It's all about him. And then you get other people like Mica who are almost too empathetic, overthinking, how is it genetic? Is it learned behavior? I mean, where does that come from, I wonder? Anyway, yes, have a great birthday, Chumba. If you're still here, she's probably gone out somewhere. Have a great birthday, and I'll see you all really soon in the next video. Thanks for being here with me. Don't forget to hit the like, and I will see you really soon in the next video. And until then, may your God go with you, and justice for Mica. Bye. Oh, he's still there. Still there, Chumba. So let's have justice for Mica. Bye.